And the other thing that we really take pride in is that we feel like we're the tip of the spear for educating consumers about agriculture. And we're still a commodity grain farm as well. And like I said, we receive a couple thousand visitors a month, and many of them take an hour-long tour, and we're really able to tell not only the story of Whiskey Acres, but the story of my peer farmers up and down the road about what we do, how we do it, and why.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Croak, and we're here today with Jamie Walter, who is the co-founder of Whiskey Acres, also serving as the president and CEO. Welcome to our show, Jamie.
Good morning, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
So I'm really interested in what inspired you to begin a whiskey distillery. We know you're a farmer, but talk to us about how you added on this extra business.
Yeah, so really it goes back, about more than 15 years ago when my dad and I were looking for ways to diversify our farming operation. We're about 60 miles due west of Chicago, and at the time rented almost all of our land. And so as land was being gobbled up for development, we were losing acreage and needed to kind of come up with a way to do more with less. So higher value added processing was kind of what led us into distilling. I have a little background in the wine industry. We looked at popcorn. We looked at a number of things, but eventually settled on the bourbon industry.
I love that theme of doing more with less. I feel like farmers are just experts at doing more with less. Jamie, talk to us about what sets Whiskey Acres apart. I know you've won some awards. You have some special drink recipes and fun things to bring to your consumers. Talk to me about some of those things.
Yeah, so Whiskey Acres is one of the only craft distilleries in the United States that grows all of our own grain. So there's over 2,500 distilleries in the U.S., and there's probably only a couple dozen that are actual true farm distilleries that grow all of their own grain. We call it from seed to spirit. So that's really what sets us apart, is that we control everything. We grow all of our own grain. We make all of our own products right here using our own hands, our own equipment, our own water. And what's started to set us apart really today is our use of different varieties of corn in making different flavored expressions of whiskey.
That's really interesting. How many family members are involved in the growing of all of these different crops? I assume you need lots of crops for different flavors and tastes of whiskey.
Yeah, so we grow all of our own corn, wheat, rye, and barley on our farming operation. My dad and I own and run the farming operation. We have a couple of full-time people that help us with that. On the distillery side of things, we have today actually about 34 employees. Many of them are part-time. We have a very popular visitor center here on the farm, so we receive a couple thousand visitors on the weekends every month. And that come out for cocktails, et cetera, and we take care of them. So it's a family operation. I do have a brother that works part-time for us on the weekends as a tour guide. Other than that, it's mostly my dad and I, and a third partner that is unrelated. Nick Nagley is involved on the distilling side of things.
That's a really great story, and I love the thread of how a farm and a vibrant business can really bring some rural development to certain areas that might not have that sort of job demand, and you're really bringing something to your community. So that's really special.
Thank you. And the other thing that we really take pride in is that we feel like we're the tip of the spear for educating consumers about agriculture. And we're still a commodity grain farm as well. And like I said, we receive a couple thousand visitors a month, and many of them take an hour-long tour, and we're really able to tell not only the story of Whiskey Acres, but the story of my peer farmers up and down the road about what we do, how we do it, and why.
That's amazing. That's an integral part of your farm and your service to our industry. So thank you for that. So talk us through some of the process of making whiskey, both from your farm, like growing the crops, and then, what a general idea of how you're distilling those into a great product.
So I think your farmer listeners can really appreciate, what a challenge it is, especially from a cash flow standpoint. Not only do we have to buy all those inputs to put the crop in ahead of time, spend a year growing the crop, but then once that grain is grown and harvested, and some of it is specialty grain for the distillery as well, we then have to distill it. And so that's a process of milling grain, fermenting that grain, and then concentrating the alcohol, and then locking that whiskey up for typically about another 5 years before it's mature and ready for the market. So it's, generally speaking here, somewhere between a 5 to 8 year process before that grain goes from the field all the way into our consumers' classes, which makes it a challenge for forecasting. That's probably my biggest job.
And so you said that Whiskey Acres began in 2014. Did it really begin 5 years before that, whenever you were putting these initial seeds in the ground?
It began a couple years before that. We worked with a consultant by the name of Dave Pickerell. He was the former master distiller at a little place called Maker's Mark, and he really helped teach us everything that we needed to know, helped us design our equipment and processes. Of course, we were already growing number 2 yellow dent corn, which is typically used for making bourbon. So we did have some of that, obviously available as a commercial farm. We're raising that every year. But then, yes, it was years before that whiskey was mature and ready to hit the market.
Working with farmers, I'm always just amazed at how willingly you guys are to take a risk and to work hard and make it pay off. So kudos to you, to your family. That's amazing. So final question here. What was your biggest challenge as you built this business? Or maybe there's a challenge on the horizon for you that you're working through today?
There's a lot of challenges we work with all the time. Of course, in our early years, it was not having any experience distilling. We had to learn a great deal of new information and put that into practice and become proficient at it. We work today with Rob Wallace as our master distiller here. We helped originally teach him everything he knows and sent him back to school to get his master's degree in Scotland. And now he teaches us. And that was a big deal. Quite frankly, getting your distilling license is a big deal from the federal government. Local zoning was a nightmare for us, but we eventually got where we needed to be. And now today, probably our bigger challenge is market access, distribution, and changing customer preferences. We're seeing probably a little bit of a oversupply in the market of brown spirits across the United States, and so we're adapting to that primarily by focusing on these specialty whiskeys. We're the only distillery in the world that makes bourbon out of blue popcorn, out of green Oaxacan corn that originated originally in Mexico. A number of real specialty grains, and that today is winning us multiple awards across the world and really has made our distillery, really succeed.
Well, let me just encourage our farmer listeners to plan a stop to Whiskey Acres. Obviously, they should taste their amazing whiskeys. This whole specialty grain conversation, specialty corn, that sounds really fascinating. But also, I would love to encourage farmers to learn from you about how to talk to people in urban areas. I feel like that's a really great opportunity for farmer peer-to-peer conversation about how everybody can do that better.
Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, we appreciate that. And we appreciate this conversation, and we look forward to seeing some of your listeners here at the distillery.
That sounds great. So now we are going to pivot from what is already a fun conversation to an even funner conversation. And I'm going to offer you a corny joke. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
So not to be corny, but a corn stalk walks into a bar. The bartender says, "You want to hear a good joke?" And the corn stalk replies, "I'm all ears."
Aha.
We really got you on that one, didn't we?
Very good. You tied it together nicely, though.
Yeah, thank you. It has been so much fun to chat with you today. I know our listeners appreciate it. Thanks for spending the time with us.
You're welcome, Lindsay. Thank you very much. Have a good spring.
Thank you, you too.